Welcome to the Oxygen Advantage podcast with your host, Oxygen Advantage founder Patrick McKeown. With the Oxygen Advantage podcast, we aim to show how functional breathing is an essential part of a healthy and well-balanced lifestyle. Each episode, we meet experts in their field from around the world and talk about their lives, their experiences, and how they learned the importance of breathing. Join us and get inspired. Get the Oxygen Advantage.
Hello, everybody. I'm here today with Hannah Barrett, and this is all going to be a conversation about yoga, and I'm so intrigued. You may already know Hannah. She's got an amazing following. There are thousands of people who are reading her books and following her programs. And I'm always curious, what makes one yoga instructor different to another? Because very often, I suppose, when people think of the word yoga, what does it mean? But anyway, Hannah, this is part of the conversation. So you're very welcome. Great to have you along.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I was just saying before we hit record, it's surreal because obviously I've done your courses and I feel like I know you, but we actually have never properly had a chat one-to-one. So it's lovely to properly meet you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's always a great connection anyway between breathing and yoga. Like the connection is amazing. And what's your take on it? Because apparently breathing was the foundation of yoga, but then the movement come in. I don't know. So what's your take?
The breath is at the heart of yoga. When people think of yoga, they think of the postures, they think of the splits or someone with their leg behind the head, but it's so much more than that. And it's lots of different elements. And one of those elements is the breath, and the breath really is at the heart. And I think loads of people will have a similar story to me where they will have gone to yoga to maybe reduce stress and maybe to get more flexible. I think that's why I went originally. And I remember being in one of my first yoga classes and, we'd done a sequence and we were put in child's pose and the teacher at the time cued the breath. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I have not thought about how I breathe. It just happens. And I hadn't consciously thought about it properly until that point. And I felt the shift. I felt the shift by simply probably extending the exhale. That's all that was cued. And within a few breaths, I felt that shift. And I just thought, whoa, this is huge. We have this inbuilt within us. We take it massively for granted. And it's free. And we can use it. And I always love to say, yoga is amazing, breathwork's amazing. Nothing is a magic wand, okay? It's not going to magically fix everything in your life. But even if it just helps a tiny bit, how huge is that? And often I can start classes with that. Think of something that you're finding overwhelming or, that's stressing you out at the moment. Just think of that. Notice how it feels in your body. And then we do 5 guided breaths and then you reassess. And most of the time people are like, I went into my son's school. My son is 9 and I did a whole assembly with the whole of the school. So he's in a primary school and I got them to do this. And I asked them, and afterwards their comments on how they felt was so insightful, but they could feel how it worked. And I just thought, I really hope they remember this.
Well, Hannah, I think it's tremendous even to plant a seed, because I remember in secondary school, high school, we had a teacher. His name was, I won't say his second name, but his first name was nicknamed Hippie. And he brought us for a session and getting us out of our heads. It was only one session in the whole of my 12 years of formal education. And I still remember the session, although I didn't pick it up right then,
Yeah.
to be truthful. It was quite a few years later. But at the same time, we never waste that information, a bunch of 9-year-old kids, giving them the tools to be able to self-regulate. And yes, I don't think they'll forget that. For your journey, so you approached it. I think a lot of people go into yoga to help deal with stress. So how did it go for you then? And if you were to look back in your life, say without yoga, would you feel it's quite a difference?
Yeah.
I probably know the answer, but
Yeah.
that kind of way, you're going through life now with a tool, but maybe there's other people like you, they're still going through life, but they don't have that tool.
And it's like, it feels like a toolkit. It's not just one tool. It gives you all these tools, whether it being just like mindful movement, whether it being the breath work, whether it being gratitude or mindfulness. Like there are so many different tools that you can pull upon. I want to rewind because when I first got into yoga, I was doing something very different. So I am a maths geek at heart. I did maths at university. I then did an actuarial degree. I then was an actuary for nearly 10 years. And I worked in a corporate environment that I loved, but that was so high pressure. I mean, I could do all-nighters. We would work on projects. It was a lot. And then I realized how stressed I was, and I'd had chronic stress for a long, long, long time. Probably since my teenage years, if I'm honest. But my now husband had proposed, and we were talking about trying for a baby straight away. And I just thought, I need to get a handle on my stress. So that's when I started a daily practice and stopped kind of the once every couple of weeks or month, which it had been before. And that's when after we got married, we fell pregnant pretty much straight away. And yoga started slowly seeping in. And obviously motherhood brought different stresses. And then with that, a few years later, I decided I didn't want to go back to my job as it was before. And I did that 180 and then became a yoga teacher, and, and the rest is history. But one of the things I love doing is going now into corporates and doing really simple workshops, going, look, here are some tools. And if I'd have known these when I was an actuary, I would have done my job better. I know that. I've been where you are. I know I would have been better at my job. I would have, when you get so stressed, you can't see the wood for the trees. You're like, I just need to keep going. I need to work more hours, more hours, more hours. But actually, I really would have benefited sometimes from taking a step back and going, oh, okay, I can do this differently. I can do it this way. But sometimes you can't. Stress is heavy.
Stress is heavy, and I think people can't measure it. How do you know if you're under stress? And many people are able to override it until the point that they've gone too far.
Yeah.
So you're going into a corporate, and I assume that you're not putting them all through a yoga class, or is it talking at an event?
It's more like a workshop. So we do a seated yoga class where you can be like, look, you don't even need to get up your desk. You don't have to wear leggings and roll out a yoga mat. You can do moves, like it's accessible. Because one of my bugbears is when people think that yoga isn't for them. And that's not anything they're doing wrong. That's because we need to change the narrative, and it's not leg behind the head. It is a way of life. And you can do it sitting on a chair. You can modify every single pose. The splits doesn't have to look like your pelvis down to the floor. It can be literally over a chair if you wanted it to be. So we do that, but I also talk about mindfulness. We also do breath work, and then I'll bring in meditation as well. Like I basically have 4 key areas, my 4 tools that have really helped me, and then making it accessible. And I've done it from everyone from like corporate jobs like my ones from before, but also going into more like manual settings as well with people, and it's worked really well.
So you used the word accessible. I think that's huge, because very often I feel that these tools haven't been accessible. There's so much baggage that's attached to yoga. People are having to feel that you have to dress in a particular way, you have to look in a particular way, you have to carry yourself, and then it might put people off. So yeah, do you change your language then? So you're going into corporate environment. There's going to be a few alphas in there, just quite driven individuals in there. Are you ever conscious about how you communicate, the language that you communicate? Do you tailor it with them? I suppose you can draw on your own experience. Just tell us a little bit about that.
I don't know. I was really good at my old job, and I did very well, and I got very high up in it. So I'm a bit like I feel like it's not that some people do this and they have done a job for 1 year and then they're going, okay, I've got yoga. And I'm like, I did it for 10 years. I lived it. I know how it felt. And I know this can help you. So that doesn't really bother me. Maybe it should more, but I'm like, yes, you tailor the language for where you're going into, but it's simple tools that I'm giving them, and you're literally doing it with them so they can feel in their bodies how it is. And, some of the things I'm saying, some of the stories I'm giving, I'm sure resonate with people. And I'm sure there'll be people in the room who, maybe like you're saying when you had that teacher speaking to you, that kind of wasn't the right time for him to say those things, but you remembered it and later on you pulled it. Maybe it's not the right time for them to hear it now, but in 2 years' time, when something happens in their life where they get a bit of a shock, maybe then they're like, actually, remember when I had that workshop? And now I'm going to, now I'm going to call on it.
So the word mindful, I'm not sure if it's a particular word that I resonate with. What's your take on it? Like, again, there's something so simple about doing what we do in getting people out of their heads. If somebody was to ask you to give me a very simple explanation of what mindful is and different options that have helped you, because I'm just curious about your own personal experience. Did you live a lot in your head? I know you were stressed, but that could be the external pressures. But did you find that you were an overthinker? Just a little bit about that. And could you also go through, Hannah, a small bit of your journey, because it doesn't go in a straight line.
Oh yeah, nothing goes in a straight line too. We always expect it to, and it definitely doesn't. Do you not like the word mindful because it's overused? Do you think that's why?
I don't know. I just mindful. What does it mean? You're full of what? Like, it should be mind empty. It should be.
I've heard you say this before, actually. Yeah.
It's not the right word. It's just something that's often about. And the other thing is, very often mindfulness or mindful is these connotations that it's still a bit left of field. I would like to have a word coming back to what you talked about, accessible earlier on. So,
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I never thought of it like that before. For me, it just felt like a word rather than like really thinking deep into actually, is the word the right word? But it's a really good point. I mean, you asked, was I in my head? Yes, I am. I tend to be a very anxious person. And I think it's fair to just say that I still can be an anxious person, right? Even I'm sure you can as well. Even though we do what we do, it then doesn't make us perfect human beings who always gets it right, who are always super zen. Life is full of ups and downs. You're always going to get curveballs. That it's then calling on that toolkit to make life a bit easier, or realizing, do you know what? And I've been thinking this week, that my stress levels are going up. I'm feeling a bit anxious, and there's a reason why. But then I had to sit down and really think, why is the reason? And it's little things, but it's lots and lots of little things that have built up. And it's having more awareness of that, because I didn't have awareness of that before. And what used to happen is I was so stressed, but I would get through it and I would, do my best and work my hardest. I would then go on holiday and I would get tonsillitis or some kind of illness. And my body then was saying to me, no, enough. You put us through too much. This is what happens. And I still didn't learn the lesson. It took me some time to learn that lesson properly. But going back to what you were saying, mindfulness, it's basically paying attention, and it's paying attention in this moment. And give people an example. So do you ever feel like you're trying to do something like read a book or something you love, and you can't, you end up reading the same page 10 times, and you love reading, but you can't, you're in your head at that point. There's too many things going on. So it's learning to pay attention. And that sounds easy, right? We should be able to do that. And I think this is where lots of people fall down, because they're like, okay, well, I should be able to do that easy, or I should be able to meditate easily, because I should then not thinking should be easy. But it's not easy. And if you wanted to learn a different language, you would never go to the first lesson and then expect to be fluent. It's a practice. So each time you practice, you're going to get better. And I remember there's a neuroscientist called, I'm going to tell you afterwards because I can't remember what she's called. Sorry, the name has gone past me. Dr. Tamara Russell, I think that's her name. And she explains mindfulness as a circle. And it's basically like you pay attention, your mind wanders, you notice your mind wandering, and then you go back. And that circle is normal. And by telling people that that's normal, then they feel human, because actually that happens to everyone. But what you need encircling it is compassion, but also intention. Like, why am I doing this? Why do I want to be more mindful? And is it because that I am anxious and I'm trying to get control on that anxiety, or I want to be more present with my children? Whatever it is, you need that intention, because that's going to pull you back. Did that answer your question enough? Oh, you wanted my story.
I'm going to go a bit deeper.
Okay, go on.
So when did you come across yoga and the work that you're doing? Your child now is 9, if it's your first child. So it's about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a long way into it.
Oh no, so yeah, more than 10, because I started before he was born.
Okay, great. So it's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Has your thought activity reduced now, and would you have a number? So even though we get less anxious, or the mind still, of course, the mind is the mind, but have you ever kind of made a comparison that I was there, or 11 years ago, like what's happened the mind in that period of time in terms of a practical?
That's a really good question. This is maybe a bit of a weird answer. I feel like now I am living my life more, and that sounds weird, but I feel like I used to be on a hamster wheel that I was running and I just couldn't get off, because if I got off, everything was going to fall apart. And I used to, like, if friends were having parties, I sometimes would be like, no, I'm working. And I took that step back and thought, what am I doing? I don't have that balance. I just didn't have any of balance in life. I was stuck on work mode and success, this idea of success and being the most successful person and becoming partner. And then it wasn't until I really got into my yoga practice that I thought, who has this definition of success? Is this even my definition of success? And no, it is definitely not, because I am not living my life and I'm not enjoying my life as I should fully. Like, obviously I did like my life and I was happy, but there was so much stress. And I was just a bit of an epiphany moment for me. And I just thought, I can't do this. I can't not be there for my child's life and not be fully present. I had to change things, and I did.
And do you pay attention to your breath? So different times throughout the day, do you do a formal session, or, for example, little things here, little things there? How's your practice during the day?
I try and have at least one proper one, which is usually in the evening. And I usually do it while I'm watching TV or something like that. Or just like if I'm reading my book in bed, I will try and just like slow and low or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will actively check in throughout the day, particularly if I'm feeling really tense. When you're like, oh God, I'm really pulling in my tummy and I'm not meaning to, I'm holding tension on my shoulders are up to my ears. And I will just take a few breaths if I need it. Or if something is causing me anxiety, I'll always just start with the breath. That's the first tool. Yeah, and so I have a few techniques that are my personal go-tos that I know work well.
Would you give me one of them?
Well, I've mentioned slow and low. That's a good one. I love something called the golden thread breath. You might have a similar one called a different name, but I learned it during my pregnancy yoga teacher training by a lady called Umidins Mortuli, and it's just breathing in through the nose slowly, softly, and then whispering the breath through the mouth. So really long exhale. It's a mouth breath, but it's a really extended exhale, and it just works well for me.
It's very similar, actually. There's one. I like it too. I do it through the nose, but I think the two of them are working on the same kind of mechanism. It's really about just that slow exhalation, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing too. It's so simple. Nobody would even know you're doing it.
Yeah.
And yet you've got some degree of control. And knowing that you have some degree of control, you can go into challenging situations. And yeah, if the heart rate does bump up a bit, we have something to help bring us down. So that's your experience.
Yeah. Exactly that. And I taught it to my kids, but with smell the flower, slowly blow out the candle. And I can see, so my daughter's a couple of years younger than my son. So she's 7. And I remember it's probably a few years ago now. So she was 5. She was doing a like a production at school and she had to go on and sing or whatever she was doing. And I could see her on the side of the stage going and doing the breath that I've taught them. And I was like, yes, that is a win, because that will make, she gets anxious and that helps. And she can tell that helps. And that's huge. I didn't have that. I wish I had that when I was younger.
Oh, sure, it's massive. It's absolutely, amazing. And there's a real life example. What a perfect place to put it into practice.
I know, right? And she could do
Yeah,
that. Tell her to do it. She did that. I'm
yeah,
trying to get her to do it at her spelling tests at the moment. It's not working as well, but we'll get there.
yeah. Of course, of course. Do you check in? So you check in with your breath. Do you also check in with your mind?
Yeah, I suppose it happens because I'll notice my mind is going off or I'm not focusing on something. So I usually, say I'm filming next week, so I'm writing some plans for what I'm going to film. And if I'm not there in the moment, I will go outside and I will sit down and I will pause. That will help. That helps me.
So you check in on what's going on in the mind, and then you have a strategy then to help quieten the mind activity because you know it's not going in the right direction. Um,
Yeah.
Present moment awareness is it gets a lot of attention, and I'm always curious as well of people's interpretation of it. How has that been useful for you? You also said that you lived your own life now. I think that's wonderful, and it's almost as because you're more connected, you're more present, life is kind of guiding you, but maybe also it's your thought activity, because very often I think the thought activity that's going on in our own mind is the conditioning that we've been exposed to when we were kids, and education and society and religion and news and everything else that goes into it. So
Mm.
you've a sense of freedom. In terms of present moment awareness, do you actively or what would be your practice there, or do you use the breath to help bring you into presence? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the like one of the root, let me say this again. The roots of yoga, one of the things it teaches you is something called self-study or svadhyaya. And one of those things is all of these things that we had conditioned into us and all of these ideas that when we were children, we were thrown upon us and then became reality. It gets you to question all of those things, like what is actually your truth, what I was saying earlier about the whole success thing. So self-study is an interesting one, and bringing yourself back. Yes, I use the breath, but also like sensations in the body as well. Or like one of the ones that I like as well is just like the 5, if you're feeling overwhelmed, like the 5 things, like use your senses to help bring you back into the moment when you feel yourself running off. I was having a conversation with a lady called Kate who works with me yesterday, and she gave me this insight that was so amazing. And it's so simple, but sometimes we need to be told the simple stuff for it to click. And she was telling me a story of something bad had happened in her life. And before then, she'd been such an anxious person. She'd always worried about this thing happening, worried, worried, worried. This thing happened. And she had this epiphany moment that she just thought, all of that anxiety, all of that worry, all of that being in my head, worrying about this thing happening, the thing happened. That worry did not help, didn't help even a tiny bit. So what's the point? So it's just so true. Like, so when we're in our head, and I'm going to use my dog as an example. My dog, I've got 2 dogs, and one of them is just the sweetest thing. But if he sees a squirrel or a deer or whatever, he just chases. He will just go, and then you're like, oh God, I've got to get him back. And whenever this happens, my brain immediately goes to, well, he's dead. He's obviously gone into the road and he's been hit by a car, and that's it. I'm never going to get him back. And I'm waiting there for 10 minutes. And then finally, he always does come back. But I just thought when she was saying this, I was like, God, I've wasted so much of my life worrying about this dog. And he does go on a lead on it now because it's not good that he runs away. But my point is, these things that we worry about, are they helping you? Are they helping you worrying about them? And in most cases, it's going to be no. We have to let it go. It's another one of the lessons of yoga, right? You've got to let go what you can't control. If you can do something about it, do it. If you can't, let it go. just causing you pain otherwise.
I suppose the step is that you know that you're worrying about it because you're paying attention to what's going on. And then you
Yeah.
have the tools to help you start realizing, well, here I am thinking about that same thing 50 times.
Mm.
Now it's going nowhere. So I might as well do something to help bring a stillness to the mind. So you focus on your breath through the body. So
Yeah.
that's
What can I
cool.
do? What can I actually do in this moment? And then you can do that because
Mm.
yeah, and it's hard. It is, it's really hard. I'm saying it like it's easy. Just let it go. Just stop thinking about it. I mean, that's hard, but it's just something has to shift. And if I wake up in the morning, like today, I was saying I'm feeling a bit anxious at the moment. I was walking at my house and I just thought, God, I can feel that anxiety. I can feel it in my stomach, like I can physically feel it. But that's good because I'm paying attention that actually I'm feeling off. And right now I can sit down and go, what is it? What is actually making me feel like this? And I can go through it and go, these are small things, right? What can I do about these things? And some of them are problems. They are problems because throws you problems. But, it's recognizing, isn't it? That's the first step.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's also having the tools that we've been talking about. Um, you had an amazing job, you know. People would be so envious. You were an actuary. It's to get to that level, to get through university, it's huge to get into the industry. I'm sure
No one
people
ever
said,
knows what an actuary is. And they
yeah, of
often
course.
think that I say actress. And I'm like, no, it's not that. It's definitely not as cool as that.
I know it's huge. My take is that you're assessing risk and insurance to be able to calculate the actuality or the event happening or something to that degree. But
Oh my God, that is a better definition than I could ever give. That is it. That is precisely, you've hit the nail on the head.
so you went from that, okay, because I'm always curious about this work-life balance. I don't have a work-life balance. Let's be honest with you. There are parts of my day that I bring in some degree of balance, but at the same time, I feel that I work a lot. How is your day going for you? Would you give me an idea of your day? So do you take time out? Like you've carved your life, which is amazing for people to do. And a lot of people are probably thinking about it, but I'd love to get an idea of what's your day like.
I mean, I am consistently trying to get the balance. So don't
Mm,
think that I have got the
okay.
balance yet. I
I
think
feel
it's
good
hard.
now.
Yeah, it's hard though, because we obviously both now love what we do. So in a way, work for me feels fun because I love it. And therefore I have to just think, what do I want? Like, is this the right thing? I can't. And if we work ourselves to the bone, like these are our businesses, right? So we can't do that. So we do have to be a bit protective of ourselves and our health and our mental health, etc. I obviously have two quite small kids as well. And one of the things when I left being an actuary, I wanted to be there for my kids. So I wanted to work and I wanted to build these businesses, but I also wanted to be present as much and have the flexibility, which I have got. I mean, I'm as I say, it's still a balance. I have two businesses. So I have Yoga Happy, which is my app, my book, my community. And then I have Alba Yoga Academy, which is my teacher training school, which I run with Celeste Pereira, who I know you've already been on our podcast and are coming on again. And I love both of those businesses so much, and mainly because of the connection, because of the people, because of I can see that what I'm doing is having an effect and it's helping people. And I know how much it helped me. So I love that. I love that I can help people feel more connected with themselves, with their lives. Um, the balance is hard. It, you often find yourself working a bit odd hours because you're trying to I mean, I want to take my kids to school and I want to pick them up from school, but then that's often doesn't leave enough time. But I think you probably have found this as well. It's finding the right people to bring onto your team.
Mm.
So slowly over the years, I have found amazing people, whether it's videographers, whether it's editors, whether it's my amazing Kate, who helps just manage everything. You you have to slowly find those people and help delegate as much as you can, because I imagine you're like me, a bit of a perfectionist, and you know the route that you want to go down, but we can't do everything ourselves. So
Mm.
that's how I'm trying to balance my life at the moment. Um, but again, I'm not perfect, and it's all a kind of journey, and that's so cringe, but it is. You learn along the way what works, what doesn't work, and how you can get better. And you just have to, as you say, keep checking in. How am I
Mm.
doing? Is this working for me? If it's not, what can I do different? What lesson can I learn here? Because
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I think it's wonderful because it's not always what social media would seem to suggest, you know. You're being honest, you're being real. You have a few things, of course, going in your favor. You have a job that you love to do, and it would be amazing if other people actually found a job that they love to
yeah,
do. I often wonder how have we been lucky enough to find an occupation that we actually love, um, to work in it, to build it, to make a living from it.
yeah.
You know, I suppose then you're grateful for that. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but have you ever put out the question if a 20-year-old, you know, they're about to embark on their occupational career for the rest of their life, would you have any advice? And I'm sure there's a few 20-year-olds listening to this that a bit of
Yeah.
advice could be helpful, you know?
I think my biggest advice was what you just said, the career for the rest of their life. Don't think of it like that. Like, because it doesn't have to be like, I literally am the poster child for this because I did something so different before. It was a complete 180. And I don't regret being an actuary. I learned so much doing that. And I sure I wouldn't have a business as I do now without that knowledge. So it's more, there's so many things going into this. You obviously have to think like, I need to make money because I need a roof over my head, I need to eat and all these kind of things. So, when we are training people to be yoga teachers, lots of people have part-time or even full-time jobs and are then this is their side hustle, and they're trying to figure out how to create something sustainable that can support them. Because the reality is, if you're a yoga teacher or a breathwork teacher right at the start, it's really hard because your studios don't pay that well and it's really competitive and there are lots of things going in your favor. So you kind of need to kind of figure that out first. So it's like, always think, what do I need? Like, what do I need to survive or to live the life that I really want to live? Not survive, that's not the right, to thrive. And then, okay, I need this amount. What does that look like? How can I make that work? And does that mean I need to take a part-time job and then do this and that? And I want to do these workshops and this retreat and these classes. Is this feasible? So you need to look at it like that. But if you're a 20-year-old thinking about what do I want to do? You've got to think about, I need to, how can I support myself? And then what do I love? What actually brings me passion? And then can I find a job in that sector? And what does that look like? And most of the time, what it will look like when I started as an actuary, the job was like an analyst. And you start crunching all the numbers and doing all these things that doesn't look like the job you want, but you have a long-term goal. Because I think people forget, and even when I started my yoga business at the beginning, it looked nothing like it did now. And you do have to work up to it. It's not going to fall on your plate. You're not going to be leading, be headlining festivals when you're just starting. You need to kind of, yes, have that as an aspiration, as your affirmation. This is what I'm going to do. But you need to figure out how you're going to get there, because it's not no one's ever going to hand something to you on a plate, or maybe they do, but it doesn't happen most of the time, right?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
helpful?
true. Yeah, no, totally. Affirmations then as well, because you brought in that word. Do you ever think about manifestation? Do you ever think about what you're doing that can help to attract can it help to attract? In other words,
Mm.
if we're in a state of mind struggle, do we make things easier on ourselves? You know, if, for example, we work on helping to bring a quietness and a calmness to the mind, you're doing it through your yoga, you're doing it through breathing, doing it through mindfulness, you're teaching this to your students. Does this then pave the way for things to happen in that person's life? Is it something that you ever think about, or?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I journal. That's one of the things that I do daily. I would start with pointing to people towards gratitude. So start with gratitude. Like, yes, maybe everything feels like heavy and a struggle right now, but what is the good? Like, find the sun coming through the clouds. And is that you have a home? Is that you have, you had a delicious breakfast or whatever. It's small things that actually are, you realize are the big things, and do that every single day. The science on gratitude is huge. Like it makes a difference to everything from kind of sleep to happiness. Like it's big. And then think about affirmations. But think about them, they have to kind of be realistic and attainable is my understanding of it. So, me saying, oh, I don't know, I want to, I can't think of an, but like maybe I want to be a billionaire yoga teacher.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Or so just
Yes.
something like completely out there that actually probably I don't even want. But you just think of them as something, yeah, I could do that. But it's thinking of the positive, not saying, oh, I can never do that. But this is actually, yeah, I could do that. Maybe it's in 5 years, maybe it's in 10, but that is attainable to me. And yes, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to work towards it. My daily affirmation, though, in life is don't sweat the small stuff. That reminds those things that grind your gears or that, cause stress that actually they shouldn't, because it doesn't matter. Like my kids losing their socks every single morning, right? Don't fly off the handle, just get them like so many socks that this can't happen again.
Don't sweat the small stuff. I think there's a book by the same title by Susan Jeffers, which is quite an old one. God, it must be about 30 years old. So when you're working then with your students and you have, say, a group of instructors with you and they're embarking on their yoga journey, do you talk then about in terms of how they communicate what they are doing to their clients? Do they tailor the yoga practices to their clients? Because, say, for example, I'm a total novice to yoga. I have done some yoga, but very, very little. But if I went in on YouTube and I looked at the yoga class or some of the classes that I went in on, the same information is put out there to 30, 40, or even 50 people, but it doesn't necessarily take into consideration that one student may be less flexible, one student may be more breathless, one student may have different issues such as anxiety and panic disorder. How do you do that? How do you tailor it?
It's a really, really good question. And again, it goes back to this idea of accessibility and helping people. The last thing you want as a yoga teacher is someone to come to your class and just be like, oh God, I can't do this. Yoga's not for me, because yoga is for everyone. It's not, there's no question about that fact. It's difficult, isn't it? If you're putting something out there, like on my app, for example, you're doing classes. One thing is variation, like having ones that are beginner specific, because if you have a beginner come in, there are different types of beginner. There's a beginner who's been, a runner for 20 years and done Pilates for 15 and all these. They're not the same kind of beginner as someone who really hasn't done much movement and doesn't have much body awareness. But for those people, you need to give them an option where they feel seen, they feel supported, they have loads of options because they're props and every pose, as I said already in the podcast, every pose can be modified. But even like going to the breath, okay, we talked about this before we hit record. Some teachers are taught that there's a breath called Ujjayi breath or victorious breath, and it's quite an intense breath. And it's a breath where people tend to overbreathe as well. And over the years, somehow some people teach it and from the beginning to the end of a yoga class, and that's what they say everyone should do. And it's not that I truly believe that isn't true. You shouldn't tell people how they should be doing that one thing is completely right for everyone, because if it isn't, and what we've seen is lots of people have had issues with Ujjayi breath with their vocal cords, and it doesn't feel good for them. They walk out and they're like, I don't feel like I should. Like, they've had a grounding class, say, and they do not feel grounded. They feel wired and they feel not good in themselves and their bodies. So instead, I teach nasal breathing. I don't teach Ujjayi breathing unless people really want to do it and it's right for them, then that's for them. But as much as possible, nasal breathing, because not everyone can do that. And so if you tell people you have to breathe nasally and you can't, that then makes them feel like a failure. So as much as they can, that's great. But if you're starting out, it's hard enough to do the poses. Don't worry too much about the breath. It will come when things become more familiar. So my firm belief is give people all the options. If they want to do nasal breathing, amazing. If they want to do a mixture, amazing. And then they can work something to work up to. And if they, if they're doing triangle pose, grab a block, do it on a chair. Like, they give them options. So again, they feel like, I belong here. It's one of my mottos, I belong here, because we need to make yoga more inclusive, and this is how we do it.
I like the way you used the word failure, because I can often think that the people who actually need it the most
Mhm.
are often the ones that feel that they don't have the adequate capabilities to do it. So you're setting the bar absolutely perfect for each individual that comes in. You're making them feel safe. They enjoy doing it. They're more likely to stick with it, and then it forms a habit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen that way. And especially in the wellness world, oftentimes I feel that there's an emphasis, and maybe it's due to maybe an experience of the teacher. There's an emphasis that we should be pushing it and pushing the boundaries, but where the push can be, it can be too much and it can put people off. And I've seen it in different aspects. So I think that's great. And then, so that's the beginner's class, and then gently over time,
They can
what
work up to it if they want
totally,
to. Maybe
yes.
yoga for them is just something always really gentle that balances the rest of their crazy day. I was use an example. A good friend of mine, I taught her yoga once and she could not do Shavasana. She was like trying to chat to me. She kept opening her eyes, and I was like, we need to work on this. And then she realized that her over the years that mindfulness and meditation and breath work, that's what she needed from a yoga practice. The movement she could get elsewhere, but that's what she wanted to use. One other thing I want to add in, Patrick, is if people are really anxious, and I'm sure I've heard you talk about this before, when you tell them to breathe in a certain way, that can be really triggering. So for some people, it doesn't work with them cueing the breath. And there are lots of different breathing techniques in yoga, box breathing and 2-1 breathing and all these things where, you know, actually reminding people, saying, this doesn't work for everyone. If this doesn't work for you, please just do what feels better, and giving them that out. Because if they're told this is meant to help you feel calmer and it doesn't, they are that failure. And that is not how you want those people to feel. And in fact, you could trigger a panic attack. And this is literally the last thing that you want to do. So it's more, I think everyone in the world needs to know that we are so unique and nuanced, and what works for me may not work for you. And that's okay. But like, let's help you grow your toolkit to figure out what those tools are that work for you, because
And
we're all different.
I totally agree. I think it's amazing, Hannah. And the other thing is that being able to tailor it is it's so important. And ultimately, this is the work of a good coach. Like, we
Mm.
have to think that AI is almost upon us, and I know that's going to be a little bit of trepidation for some people, but we have to be realistic. This is where it's going. The personal connection is always a human to human, face to
Yeah.
face. And even as we talk here, okay, it's by Zoom, but at the same time, there's a connection there. It's not quite as good as person to person or face to face. But have you thought much about what's coming down the tracks? Have you thought much about the trepidation or the fear that people may have in terms of your practice or what you then put out to your students?
What do you mean in terms of, oh, sorry, repeat the question.
So I suppose, yeah, I'll explain it just a little bit more or better. And so I've thought about, can AI replace me as a breathing instructor? Can AI replace you as a yoga instructor? So we've been told 50% of jobs are going to be replaced in the next 5 years with AI.
Mm.
So that's something that we should be all taking into consideration. But ultimately, us being human can't be replaced.
Yeah.
And always with that, that face-to-face connection, whether it's by Zoom, we're still having a conversation. It's really, really important, isn't it? And you can see there's even going to be a bigger role for the likes of yoga for breathing as well, because I would think that some people are going to have a virtual reality. A lot of individuals, youngsters in their teens, in their 20s, and they're not going to leave their bedroom. They're going to be staying in there, and that's going to be their reality. And it's not a particularly good reality. I've kind of went into a bit of negativity there, but necessarily, but you
I think
know,
it's unfortunately it's the world that we're going into. And
mm,
you're completely right. It's human connection. AI can't take that away. And even through YouTube or app videos, people are getting me. And I just don't know if that can be replaced. I
mm.
mean, it's scary to think that it could, that literally they can just do an AI video of you. But I just don't think it can. And I mean, events, festivals, those kind of things where it's not just the connection you have, it's the connection people have with one another as well. Like I just feel like there's always going to be room for that. But it is worrying. And I have three nieces who are very, very much teenagers. And I just worry so much about with social media. And two of them I've got throughout the years, they are proper yoga lovers now and they do it almost daily and it's amazing. But so they're twins. And then the older one, she was never into it until recently when she hit her GCSEs. She's doing her GCSEs at the moment. And she asked me, she was like, can you give me some classes for exam stress and like so I can get a handle on this? And I was so happy. I was just like literally at the other end of the phone, just being like, yes, I can do this, I can help you. And since then, she's done yoga every day with me and she's used the breath
Wow.
and she's used some meditations as well. And they're helping her. Again, it's not a magic fix, but it's helping her. And I'm just like, because I know I I would love to have had yoga when I was a teenager. And I am desperately trying not to push it onto my children because I don't want them to run away from it. So if they ask me to do it, we'll do it. My daughter, people might have heard me say this before, she loves Jamie, as in Cosmic Kids Yoga. And so whenever I'm like, come do yoga with me, she's like, yeah, I'll do yoga with you, but I'm doing Jamie. And I'm like, okay, yeah, Jamie's awesome. We love Jamie. Fair enough. And she's much more fun than I am. So you can do that. I'll do my thing. But like I try and sneak it in. So my son many years ago he kept waking up in the night and he'd come and get me and he'd be like, I can't get back to sleep. And every time I'd be like, Jack, my answer is the same thing. Like, try this breath work, try doing this, try doing that. And then he'd do it and he'd fall asleep. And in the end, this happened so many times, I can't even tell you, that he has this thing called the Yoto player, which is basically like a cassette player, but instead of a cassette, it's a card. And it has audiobooks, which they love, but you can record your own. So I recorded some sleep meditations and some breath work. And I was like, when you wake up in the middle of the night, pop this guy in and, see if that helps. He hasn't been back to wake me up because he knew then this helped him, put it in, all fine. And so my point of telling you this story is that I am trying to weave it into their lives in the least pushy way possible because I want them to love it. And I feel like if I make them do it, they're not going to. But I really hope when they're teenagers, they will do it with me more because I know my life would have been better and easier. I hated being a teenager. It was, oh God, I just didn't know my place in life. And if I'd had yoga, life I know would have been that little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tremendous go-to, and at the same time as well, you have it in your teenage years, you literally have something to fall back on, something to work with for the rest of your life, as
Mm.
opposed to living stuck in your head, living responding to the situations, amplifying the situations in our own head. Very often we're our own worst enemy and
Yeah.
we don't even give it consideration because we don't step back and ask ourselves, what are we thinking about? It's so simple, Hannah. And
Yeah.
yet a lot of people, it's passed them by,
Yeah.
and it's really one of those things. I'm just conscious of time. So sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing on that as well. Like it just wasn't a focus when we were at school, though. Obviously, you did have that one class, but that was like once. I mean, my schooling very much was like get the grades, get the grades, get the grades, get the grades, work hard, do this. And it doesn't really equip you well for life. And I feel like schools are doing a bit better now, although the pressure on our children, it feels really intense, even with mine being younger. But like, I feel like people are realizing it. And I think all we can do is do our best to keep on spreading the word, keep on spreading these simple things, not overcomplicating it, just saying, look, give this a go, see how you feel. Because when people do, they come back.
And that's really what it's about. Yeah, no, amazing. Drawing to a close, how can people, so you have a book as well, or you may have more books.
I've got two books, yeah,
Two
Yoga
books.
Happy and the Yoga Happy Year. I've also got some yoga cards called Yoga Anywhere.
And people, they can purchase those books on amazon.co.uk or amazon.com.
Anyway, yeah, anywhere, any good bookshop will sell those.
And then your websites and your social media.
Yeah, just come find me at Hannah Barrett Yoga on Instagram. I'm also not really on TikTok, but I am there. And then you've got Yoga Happy. So Yoga Happy, I've got on Instagram, but it's my app. And if you just type in Yoga Happy, you'll find me. And there are a collection of 600 plus classes to support you, whatever you need, whether you're a beginner, whether you're advanced, whether you have 5 minutes, whether you have 65 minutes. And we have a community within the app as well, which is really beautiful. It's more than just, yoga classes. You get access to me and you get access to the wonderful community too.
Excellent. And sorry there, your yoga app is by the name of?
Yoga Happy. It's all you. So my
Great.
brand is Yoga
So
Happy.
easy. Great, great, great. Excellent. Hannah, it was a pleasure. I know I went off a little bit of a tangent in some ways, but sometimes that makes it interesting. I'm curious.
Thank you so much for having me.
So yeah, thanks for
Delighted.
giving us an insight into your work and your personal life and your state of mind and everything else. And it's all good. So pleasure. Thanks very much, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Oxygen Advantage podcast. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and maybe take the time to leave us a review. The Oxygen Advantage podcast is available from all your podcast providers.